And welcome everyone to this webinar organized by the French-Ukrainian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. So I'm Sébastien Gobert. I'm a former journalist and now communication expert, and with a long story with Ukraine. And I'm very pleased to welcome you today. We have this series of webinar organized basically every month by the French-Ukrainian Chamber of Commerce. It goes hand in hand with some podcasts and newsletters that basically the Chamber is producing to share information on Ukraine's resilience and on Ukraine's recovery perspectives. The Chamber of Commerce is extremely active in Ukraine, and it's always important to emphasize that it is here to help you, entrepreneurs and investors, to welcome you. To support you in your different projects. So today we are going to talk with Max Nefyodov. Max, I don't know if you can hear us, but I know that you're here. Yes.
Yes, I'm definitely here, and I hear you fine.
Yeah, hey. So great pleasure to welcome you here. So obviously we know you as a former first deputy minister in charge of economy, one of these post-Maidan bright reformers, initiator of the worldwide, the world acclaimed Prozoro electronic procurement system. And recently you you have been acting as the co-head of the Damage in UA project and also the head of the Big Recovery Portal project. And you also co-founded the Technology of Progress NGO that monitors, that implements IT and analytics projects related to Ukraine's recovery. So there is obviously quite a lot that we want to talk about with you, but I believe that you have some presentations that you want to show us.
Just a second. Okay. Do you see the presentation?
I do.
Okay, so thank you very much for inviting me here, and it's my pleasure to talk to such esteemed audience. I always hate when I'm being presented only as X something, because I was actually very happy when after 6 years in the government I was finally fired, and I was able to return back to business and to doing some exciting projects outside of the public sector. I've spent the last 3 years working in a bunch of industries, and obviously once the Russian full-scale invasion started, we also tried to see what we can do in order to help the country, in order to attract more financial assistance, to highlight the amount of damages and destructions that the Russian invasion is causing, and also help the country recover in a sustainable, green, and aligned with EU integration way. So indeed, one of the projects which I'm honored to be a co-head of is Damaged in UA. That is the initiative spearheaded by the Kyiv School of Economy, which started basically on the second day of invasion. At the request of the Ministry of Economy and the Ministry for Restoration and the President's Office, we started assembling data about all the damages, direct damages and losses, including all the indirect costs incurred, and also the needs for recovery. As of now, we're basically the project that does it in Ukraine, and I think that almost every news article or any international press that cites something in Ukraine basically is based on our data. We've been featured everywhere, from Le Monde to Financial Times, from CNN, to BBC. And our data is the core for all the estimates done by the World Bank and the United Nations, the so-called RDNA and PDNA assessments, which are officially used by all international organizations. The project consists of two parts. So the first of them is analytical. We have close to 30 sectoral analysts that work with the government on the methodology, on updating the data, on digging deeper and deeper into each sector, because obviously, in each sector, situation is very different. And the other one is related more to IT and modern solutions, because we have huge databases which are impossible to manage in Excel. And also, in many cases, unfortunately, the scale of damages is so high that we can't rely on just from the ground reporting. It took
I'm sorry, Max.
dozens of yeah.
Did you launch the presentation? Because on our screens,
yes.
it is shown as loading.
Loading. Okay, because
yeah.
Do you see? I've switched to another slide. Do you see it?
No.
No. Okay.
Yes, now, yeah. Yeah. No, it's okay.
Okay, then sorry, I'll be showing it not in a full screen mode because for some reason Zoom doesn't allow it. So just to sum up, the landscape. So we have our own proprietary backend databases. We've built special interfaces for analysts, and we are running probably the largest drone and satellite assessment operation worldwide. Again, this is not just to brag, but just because the technology is improving quickly and the scale of destruction is unprecedented, even comparing to Syria or Iraq or Afghanistan. I mean, of course, it's always bad to make this, some kind of Olympic Games of grief and people suffering. It's, every life is valuable, and just you can't calculate it, but just in the pure, size of the quantity of objects that needs to be assessed. Unfortunately, the war in Ukraine is something that the world hasn't seen since the Second World War. So just to give you some kind of understanding why we're doing it and why we think that what we're doing is interesting and the technology might be applicable not only to damage assessment because it's fast. Obviously, I mean, when we work with drones, we can assess close to like 5 settlements per day. It's extremely cheap as compared to any on-the-ground reporting. It's obviously independent, which is important for litigation, so you don't rely on self-reporting on just one source of information. It's technological. I mean, we use proprietary AI models for assessment. It's relatively low reliant on human and labor skills, and obviously it's also secure. We are much less prone to any risks during this assessment, though of course they sometimes still are. So what we are doing basically is drones fly over a settlement according to some kind of a flight path. An orthophoto plan is created. Additional photos and videos are collected to assess building height, types, and so on. And after this, using first AI models and then human quality control, we assess the footprint, height of each building, its type, its damages, and so on. And the final stage, obviously, we upload it to our proprietary business intelligence system, where you basically can click on each building and see what it looks like. So here you can just see a couple of photos of what actually the operation looks like. So, and the end result is like this, which means that like you have each building, you can click on it, you can see the picture of damages, you can see pre-war photo from Google Maps, and a lot of parameters for each building. This is actually a photo of a real warehouse in Gostomel. This is important because we
Oui,
believe not
bonjour,
on.
Charbel Canal à l'appareil, vous m'avez appelé tout à l'heure, à l'instant.
Sorry, we believe this is important not only because it provides very accurate assessment, but also because it provides very graphic and easy to understand interface, especially for international litigation. And this is something that might be of interest to some of the people present here. Because regardless of the jurisdiction and even regardless of the exact legal path that your legal team advised to you, whether you go to the international, like European Human Rights Court, or whether you apply to some local countries trying to prove like damages in the country of residence, and then trying to arrest and confiscate some Russian assets or any other method, you would still need independent verification. And we believe this is a much better mechanism as opposed to any documents in Ukrainian issued by local police or local firefighters, as is usual practice in the country. So what is the scale of our operations right now? So you see that we have over 1.3 million buildings analyzed, out of which about like close to 9% have some signs of damages. We operate mostly in 7 regions. First of all, because we want to do it relatively large scale, and second, because of security reasons. So, for example, in eastern part of Kharkiv and in Kherson, the security situation, especially which pertains to radio frequency warfare, is quite problematic. We had a couple of times our drones shoot down. Obviously, the teams sometimes are detained by the local authorities. So, I mean, it's probably will continue in 2024. But as I said, it's probably the largest such operation in Ukraine. We're using satellite imagery for analysis of occupied territories. We usually don't make it public, so we're not including it here because, again, of security reasons or any potential harm that can be done to people or businesses or assets that still are left there. But this is also an option. We have access to all the high quality imageries that exist commercially, and we are very happy to use it to help businesses as well as ordinary citizens to try to get compensations for their property loss. Again, here are the pictures so that to give you better understanding of what the end result looks like. So here is the example of Borodyanka, both in terms of frontal pictures taken and the type of analysis of each building. Again, this is GIS quality data. So this is not just a dot on a map. I know these are detailed orthophoto plans, which can be uploaded to land cadastre, for example, or can be used for future demining and so on. I also want to spend a couple of minutes talking about the work that we've done regarding Kakhovka Dam disaster. Again, we probably are the only organization that were able to do it. We've built a proprietary model, basically linking absolutely each structure that exists in flooded area with the geographical maps obtained from NASA, and with hydrology models built by ecology experts to show where the maximum height of the water was and how long it retained at this level. Because no satellite imagery can show you the exact peak of flooding, for each point. Usually, high quality satellite imagery is available maybe on a bi-weekly basis at best, and sometimes much more seldom. Then, of course, there are the problems of clouds, smoke, bad weather, not very good angles at which the photos are taken by satellite, because it's not like in James Bond movie. It's not always above your head, but sometimes it's a sharp angle which makes analysis very, very difficult. So we've done this to estimate each building, and again, if you're interested, here are the final results to see what the amount of damages was on this territory. So this is something that we can do. And I'm telling you about this not only in terms of just information dissemination and trying to raise awareness to what is happening in Ukraine, but obviously trying to show what technology can do and what can be of use to the French businesses that operate in Ukraine. So basically, if you need our support, we'll be very happy to cooperate with you to make external independent evaluation of your assets, either in Ukraine, on the controlled territory of Ukraine, which is easy and can be done with drones. And if needed for complex industrial objects, we obviously can also do 3D mapping, both visual or with LiDAR. And if we're talking about occupied territories or some assets that were confiscated from you, again, we can do satellite imagery analysis and to try to make, to try to find exact dates to show that it existed, prior to the invasions, that to link it with a specific destruction or bombing or rocket attacks and so on. So this is again something that potentially can be of use to you, either from the purely accounting point of view, so that you can basically make write-downs from your balance sheets, or as many companies are interested from the point of view of litigation. Because obviously you'll need as much data as possible to prove these damages and to try to confiscate some Russian assets to receive compensations for them. So that's probably it about the first part of what I wanted to tell you. And if there are any questions pertaining to this part, maybe I can answer them now, or I can show you a couple slides regarding the recovery, and we can proceed from there.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's extremely interesting. It looks extremely precise. It's really remarkable. So actually, you partially answered like one of the questions that I had. Like, what do you do with this data that you collect? Like, basically, so you offer your services to the French entrepreneurs and investors who are here attending this webinar. But do you also transfer this data to UN agencies, to state agencies, to various actors to foster reconstruction?
We collect the imagery for, and all the data for three major goals. So one of them is obviously analytics. The state and the international organizations need to understand the extent of damages and the first priority needs, and how this correlates to the amounts that can be disbursed to Ukraine. Accurate and timely information obviously is critical, and that's why I mentioned that IMF, World Bank, United Nations, and so on, they use this data. So this was the number one priority for us from the first days of the invasion. The second part is, as I said, litigation. So still, despite many international politicians being very slow in moving in regards to Russian assets and the assets of the Russian central bank, I still think that this is inevitable, just because no democracy can convince its taxpayers to help Ukraine indefinitely when they're sitting upon hundreds of billions of Russian assets that can be put to use. So I'm sure that regardless of usual slowness and procedures and sometimes lack of leadership. I'm sure this will be done, because again, it's very difficult to explain why, for example, French taxpayers should pay more to the EU budget for the support of Ukraine if there is an easy alternative solution first, like let's confiscate Russian assets. And it's not only easier, but it's also moral, because obviously the wrongdoer should pay for the for the damage caused. And the third goal of our work, of our monthly analysis and so on, is indeed recovery. Because in order to understand what to recover, you need to understand the state of what is happening on the ground. And it's important to note that we are working not only with destroyed assets. So when we do the mapping, we map everything, including those objects that are functioning. That's why I mentioned that we've analyzed over 1.3 million buildings, out of which less than 9% they're damaged. So for many settlements, this is the first ever time they actually had an orthophoto plan. And whenever the architects or the urban planners, want to do something, they basically ask for our data. And yes, indeed, of course, we transfer the data to the state first of all, and the state then transfers it to international organizations, because what we are doing is not some kind of rogue operations. It's not like we just decided that it's fun to peek over damaged buildings. So we are a registered donor-funded project. That's why you see all the logos of UNDP or European Union here, because they fund our operations, and which basically means that the data produced is public. It's transferred to the government, in this case to the Ministry of Recovery. And I just mentioned what immediate use this can be for you, because I understand that again that you're listening to me not just for fun, but you want to understand what are the potential options for different businesses. And we indeed cooperated with specific cities and companies in order to provide them sometimes with more detailed information if needed for their own goals. So this is just something that we believe can be of value. In many cases, this work has already been done. So if you happen to be situated, in one of these territories that are marked here with this color blurbs, this probably means that your assets have already been analyzed and cataloged and so on. And obviously, we'll be happy to share the end results if this is useful for you.
Yeah, thank you. Perfect. No, obviously we're not here for fun, but still, it's really a pleasure to listen to you. It's very rich. Thank you. We have a question from Katerina Trifonova. So you are damaged in UA. Are you cooperating with UA damage? This is the question.
Well, we subcontracted UA damage for, I know Vitaly Lopushansky for quite some time. So we subcontracted him for the analysis of Mykolaiv city specifically, but in many cases, I have respect for what he is doing, but in many cases there is not that much practical help that we can get from from his AI models. In many cases it's not accurate enough, and that's why I said that we use usually a hybrid approach where we make first recognition of footprints automatically, but then we use manual quality control and quite complicated procedures to make them GIS compliant, because our end result, again, they're not just like there is a very big difference between the works that you might have seen, for example, in The Economist, where they mapped Mariupol. It's great for the journalists. It's great for a picture, for some kind of slide deck or something like this. But this is not GIS data. The main product that we are doing, this is not PowerPoint. The main product that we are doing, they're GeoJSON files. that we are transferring that can be used, in RGIS or QGIS, for further analysis, for interlane with, as I said, for example, land cadastre and so on. But again, I would just want to reiterate that I wish Vitaly all the best in his work.
Thank you. Well, I think we can jump to your next presentation.
Okay, it is. Do you see it?
Yeah, all good.
Yeah. So this is a separate project that we're doing as a part of the consortium, which is called Recovery Spending Watchdog and funded by the EU. And separate modules are funded by USAID and Prague Civil Society Center. The basic goal of the project is quite simple. So the EU wanted us to build a mechanism to independently verify that recovery is happening and the quality of this recovery. So the general idea is quite simple, that quite substantial sums of money are being disbursed to Ukraine, and obviously not only Ukrainians want to see that it's being put to good use and with proper technologies, but also many taxpayers and politicians in donor countries. We do understand that the political climate, is always shifting, and everyone wants to see, real results and something that can be independently confirmed. And we do hope that many people in Brussels, they have learned from some good and bad examples of what was happening, for example, in the Balkans, and no one wants to see really shitty buildings, bearing the plaques that this was funded by the EU money. And the question is usually not only corruption. Everyone is talking about corruption, that unless, someone is corrupt, then the end result is going to be brilliant. Of course, it's not the case. Of course, there is the question of quality of construction, quality of project, whether proper labor and materials are available, whether build back better principles are being taken into the account, and so on. So this is something that we are concentrated on. We are much more interested not in the anti-corruption activity per se. So this is something that many other elements of the Ukrainian anti-corruption infrastructure like NABU and NAPC and relevant NGOs can take care of. And we are more interested, again, in the prioritization of projects, in the quality of these projects, and again, to showcase that something is being done. We've launched the project just 3 days ago, so the first iteration was put online. So you can basically go to BRP or QA and see it right now. So these are just screenshots from the real website. We are updating it on a bi-weekly basis, and the first stage of the project is going to be fully functional in May. So please don't be surprised. It's still, again, work in progress, but we'll get there. But I mean, all the numbers that you can see on the screenshots, they're actual numbers. So there are already 628 objects, under, not always under construction from the physical point of view, but they, receive financing and they are progressing somewhere. So what we want to do, at the end result. So first of all, we want to have, holistic database of what is happening for average people. Not only for financial specialists or people who are very good in analyzing state budget, but for average person who just wants to see what is going on in his or her city, especially if they are IDPs and currently are out of Ukraine. And of course, also for international stakeholders, if they want to see that, yes, actually something is being done. So we also want to collect all the news and analytics. Some of it will be produced by our own team, and we're again doing bi-weekly webinars. So if you're interested, I mean, I really would welcome you joining, because sometimes it's really interesting and for businesses as well. But also we would try to collect many information from our partners to have it all accessible in one place. Then, of course, we want to provide tools for civil engagement and civil monitoring. And these tools will range from just, putting a comment like in Facebook to writing a claim that, for example, complaints that something is being wrong, to actual monitoring using checklists and, uploading reports, on a specific project. We would be very happy to find activists to do so, but in order to jumpstart the process, we'll have 60 sub-grantees, which is quite a lot. So we'll basically be able to have them in all, not only large cities, but also, rural areas, in order to monitor the most risky object. To prioritize this work, we are building a special risk management tool, so where we automatically rank the projects by many criteria to understand, what to look at, and basically the end result will be real life verification, for example, on a quarterly basis, that construction is actually going on and no real major shit is going there. If you click on any object, again, as I said, so we've only launched, so it's not the full scope of information that will be available, and it will, like, much more data will be there in January and February, but basically it is collected like in two big blocks. So one of them is the official data that we are pulling from DREAM, that we are pulling from the state register for damaged and destroyed property, that we are getting from Damage UA and other information systems, official construction reports, licenses, land cadastre data, and so on and so on. So this is what was officially stated, for the good or for the bad. And then there is, actual civil engagement and monitoring, whether people like it or what they can say about it. And by people, I mean everyone, ranging from just usual people to journalists to NGOs and activists that can spend a little bit more on this. So we want to understand, first of all, if the project is needed at all, or if it's, a priority project. It is, not only a Ukrainian issue. I can tell you about a score of donors that are running around the country asking me for something like, please give me the list of 100 destroyed schools to renovate. And when you ask them, well, and I don't think that it's wise to renovate schools only before demining, before utilities, before roads, it looks strange. Second, and have you analyzed in some way, are these schools needed? Maybe we need not 100, old Soviet schools, but maybe we need 50 better and modern schools, and then we should buy school buses to drive people. Or on the opposite, maybe we need not 100, but 200, and we should, for example, get rid of old Soviet-style kindergartens, which are like a factory for kids. But we should go into more European way of family kindergartens for 10 or 15 kids and so on. Then, well, Max, there is no time to waste. Just give me the list and we'll start renovating something, because well, so this is a problem for everyone. So we are trying to take a look at the priority. We're trying to take a look at the project itself, whether it's reasonable, or whether it's we are just renovating the same shitty Soviet facilities, and of course the quality of construction itself. So the news, please take a look. We have already quite a bit of our own monitoring there, and some of them might be of interest to you. So we're trying to usually not only to analyze the spending, but also to analyze some sectoral needs and take a look at specific large projects, like, for example, water pipes in Kryvyi Rih and so on and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So risk
Max,
management.
Do you have this monitoring in English as well?
In English, it will be available starting April, and we actually even contacted the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs that we would actually love to make a French version as well, because, as I said, basically for us, the goal is not only to serve Ukrainian stakeholders, but also foreign stakeholders as well. And we would be very happy to give all this information, to provide it to basically to French taxpayers, so they can take a look and they can decide whether they like what is being done or not, where they can filter all the projects by those that are financed by some money that is somehow connected to France, and they see whether they like it or not. So that's the goal. Regarding risk management,
Well, on
and
behalf
again,
of all of the French taxpayers, merci.
Okay, and also to like, what is the end result of all of this analysis? Because again, we want it to be impactful. We don't want it just to, like, sometimes people joke that Ukraine has the most transparent corruption in the world. So that, you know, all the data is here, but no one knows what to do with it. So in our case, I think the situation will be somewhat easier because almost all the recovery is in some way funded by international stakeholders. They have a say over which projects are selected or not. So basically, the idea is that we identify risky projects ourselves or through complaints. We monitor them according to the checklist. And here I've specifically put a screenshot of our first checklist regarding low mobility. Because I've seen in the list that there are participants from an NGO that deals with low mobility and the rights of disabled people. So this might be of interest to you. Please go to our site. We've already produced 2 large guidebooks for specific objects, not in the form, you know, of only pictures, because sometimes it's very cynical, I'll be honest with you, when people are giving advice to some village head. Look, here is how it should be done in Copenhagen or Paris. Why don't you do the same? Sorry, guys, but a specific village, you know, Krasnogorivka in Sumy, I mean, it's not Copenhagen. And I don't think that, you know, talk about bicycle routes or children-centric recovery, we're not here yet. So you should give much more simplified checklists and instructions. Basically, do this, don't do this, and it's adequate. You know, very simple, yes or no. So even here in this checklist, you can see that basically it's, you know, yes or no. So you are selecting between 2 parameters. Once you have this on the site verification, then you can feed it back to Dream. You can feed it back to specific donors and to tell them, look, for example, like the French, either directly or via international financial institutions, are supporting, for example, 200 projects. Out of these, 150 looks adequate. Maybe there is some nitpicking here and there to be improved, but it's okay. And these 50 are bad. For example, you have a ramp for, you know, for people on wheelchairs or for, you know, parents with strollers, and it's, you know, at the angle of 45 degrees. This is not corruption. This is not that someone stole on it. This means that some idiots basically put it in such a way, and no one cared, and no one had any kind of, you know, instrument even to report on this. So please take care about it and complain, show it to the government, or basically cut off financing, you know, for this specific project unless they you know, do it right. So risk management is automated. Again, I don't want to read the slide for you, so obviously you can see it. There are like different parameters for each type of for each you know, for each project, and then there is a score for each parameter value, and then everything is added up, and basically you have a very simplified analysis of whether a project is high risk, medium risk, and low risk. So that again, it's more or less understandable for everyone. And the last but not least, so this is something that maybe is not that interesting to business, but maybe it's interesting for a couple of NGOs that participate, registered for this call. So we are going to provide sophisticated tools for registered NGOs and activists, in terms of profiles and access to machine readable checklists, and at a later stage, some kind of mobile app, ability to process complaints, ability to take some specific objects into monitoring or reuse the data that was already monitored, so that you don't like 5 organizations don't run over one village head and basically duplicate their efforts or double fund their efforts, operational statistics, and so on and so on. So again, should you be interested, or even in case, if, for example, if you're a business and you have a factory somewhere and you're interested to take a closer look at what is happening in your region, and you want to, because again, you probably want it not only from the point of view of social responsibility, but also for practical needs. If the roads, bridges, utilities, or houses for your workers are not reconstructed properly, it's a hit for your business. It's not only just theoretical problems. So again, if some of you may be interested to join forces, we'll be extremely happy, and again, we'll try to be as accommodating as possible. So that's it from me here. Again, I'll be very happy to answer your questions.
Thank you very much, Max. So I would like to remind our participants that they can drop any questions they like in the chat, or they can raise the hand, and Maud and Diana, they will help me to pick the questions. First off, I have a question. I really like what you said about picking the projects according to their relevance and according to whether it actually makes sense for the community. But for example, when it comes to renovating a school, to move towards a European model, to think about having a modern building and so on, is it compatible with the emergency that Ukraine is facing? How do you decide between, the fact that there are so many IDPs and so many needs, and the long-term perspective of building better?
Well, thank you. That's obviously a critical question, and there is no easy and simple answer for this. Of course, picking objects is always political, like in Ukraine or in any other country. So it's not hard science. However, still you can do a lot to prioritize obvious things. So first of all, you obviously want to start with the projects where the impact is the highest. So you can do it in the form of calculations, of how many additional kids will get access to education, whether these kids exist on this territory at all, whether all the other infrastructure is already here, because as I said, if there is no road, if there is no utility, there is no sense to renovate a school. First you need to get electricity and water and sewage back, because otherwise it's just an empty building. You need to analyze security risks. So obviously, if this is something for example, in Mykolaiv region, it may have higher priorities than something that sits on the bank of the Dnieper and potentially, is bombed or shelled almost daily. So again, this is strange. Then of course there is a list of of objects, and you should avoid double funding. If, for example, an international organization, or even a private charity like Warren Buffett's fund, is doing something in a village nearby, maybe then your project is not that high priority. So you shouldn't build a school in every village, even despite obviously every village head would advocate for it. So again, the idea is to filter these projects according to these parameters. And then, you can, out of the reasonable projects, of course, the choice is always political, and we know that some countries, they have closer connections to some regions. For example, the Danes, they work in Mykolaiv a lot. So obviously, they want their money to be spent in Mykolaiv Oblast. Again, that's a political choice. It's not to say that people in Mykolaiv are better or worse than in any other region. That's how just it works in reality. But at least you want to cut the absolutely stupid project. In terms of quality, that's a big issue. And this is something that I'm constantly reiterating to all the ambassadors and policymakers in Europe, because I see, first of all, as I said, like too much too much attention to anti-corruption and much less attention to capacity building. So people think that the only problem, is corruption. They come to the village that has no internet, all people are fled, and they're talking about corruption. No, guys, you should first talk about bringing, some expertise there. No one is telling that anti-corruption is not important, but it should be somehow balanced with other needs, because it's all bottleneck. And second is that at least some of international stakeholders, they have very unrealistic expectations about this build back better. So they sometimes live in ivory towers and have very theoretical understanding on how it is going to be done. So they honestly think that they are like gatekeepers. So their role is to receive a project from Ukraine that that's a bad project, please redo it. While in reality, there is no one to do it on the ground. Like this can be done in Kyiv or in Kharkiv, but it can be done, in every damaged village out of these, many hundreds that we've analyzed and damaged in UA. So in this case, you should probably help them to somehow redo the project, update it, implement some changes to it to make it more green, to make it more sustainable, more energy efficient, more accessible, and so on and so on. But also don't go, to the far extreme when you're making some kind of, this fancy prize-winning, projects from Bella Hadid or, other like Norman Foster or other, star architects that are relatively impractical, that are very costly in their maintenance, and, this village will never have the budget to do it. And, it's just basically a vanity project. It's not something that can be multiplied, and probably not super cost efficient. So quality is an issue, and this is why, again, one of the areas where I'll be happy to cooperate with people interested in it. So like in making these sectoral specific, checklists, for monitoring. We've cooperated with Olena Zelenska Foundation and the NGOs that work with people with disabilities and low mobility needs, in order to make these like very detailed, hundreds of pages long checklist for every specific type of building. Again, a lot of work is invested into it, and it's still needed to be invested. We'll be very happy to work with people who know more than we do in energy efficiency, who know more about green construction, and so on and so on. So in this regard, again, there is potential for cooperation. And again, let's be pragmatic here. You might be interested in it not only from the point of view of, just, again, civil responsibility, but also because it opens the market. Very often international companies complain that Ukrainian buyers, they buy just on price, that they don't know about new technologies, which makes you guys uncompetitive in comparison, for example, to the Chinese. Because obviously, Chinese production usually is cheaper than something done in France. But and if you want to showcase that what you sell, for example, is better from the point of view of cost of ownership, or it's better from the point of view of ecology, or longer sustainability, you need to start on the project level, not when there is already a tender and, well, what you can do at this stage, because the project stage is long gone. So we'll be very happy to cooperate on this, and we'll be very happy to try to, again, incorporate all these build back better principles in what we are doing.
Yeah, thank you. It's extremely useful. So we have two questions from our participants. Maud, Diana, you tell me how much time we have, yeah? Because I have the feeling that
like 3 minutes, but if Max has
no, I'll be happy. I'll be obviously happy to take the questions. Yeah, sure.
Okay, good. So first question from Denis Molyaka. Is there any kind of coordination between big recovery program and dream state digital ecosystem that provides a single pipeline for all restoration projects? So you did mention a cooperation with Dream.
Yes. Obviously, I mean, I'm very much involved in Dream, and I'm actually in the supervisory board of the organizations that funds Dream. The idea is that we are a monitoring tool for what they're doing. So Dream is basically a business process for state officials. So this is to where state officials work with the needs, then work with the project, then they work with Prozoro, with GDSBP, this joint database of construction documents and so on. And we are a civil monitoring part of Dream. So we take information from Dream, but we also take it from other sources, like from donors, crowdsourced from the general public, from NGOs and civil society, from our subgrantees, and so on. We analyze it, and we are obviously much more flexible in this analysis than the government can be, and then we feed it back to Dream. Even if you go to the Dream right now, you can see that on each page they have risk management done by BRP. So basically, that's how we want to do. So government official inputs a project. Then we analyze it, we collect feedback, including, for example, from you as like businesses that work in Ukraine. And then we tell, okay, this project looks nice, and this one looks fairly strange. And there is reports. Of course, we can't confirm them. I mean, we are not law enforcement, but there's reports that this project is basically being done just because it sits on a landlord that is owned by a wife of a mayor. So please, guys, take it, like we consider it's very high risk. I mean, please take a look at this. So that's in a very simplified way how we cooperate with Dream. But obviously, we are not duplicating the efforts, and we are two separate entities. I mean, as a comparison, I mean, if you know what Dozoro is, it's like we are Dozoro to Prozoro. So Prozoro is a public procurement system, and Dozoro is a monitoring part of the ecosystem.
Excellent. So second question, it's again from Katerina Trifonova. Is there a pool of mentors, consultants to assist local applicants in the preparation of application?
Well, I think it falls somewhat outside of our scope. I mean, inside our project, we basically concentrate on monitoring and reporting, not on speed, not on like capacity building per se, because we would never have the resources to work with hundreds of affected communities. But I do know that quite many donors have such projects. To name just a few, UNDP, UK Aid, then USA Haverla project, EU delegation projects that works in decentralization and so on. So definitely there is sense for you to talk to them. In our case, we would be more interested not in specific mentors that can go, say, to Krasnogorivka village, but in industry experts that can help us make a framework for analysis, again, as I said, for all these, sectoral needs for each type of building, because again, needs for a school and needs for a railway station, they're fairly different. And that we can basically like impose this framework on all the villages and all the towns and all the projects.
Thank you. So if there are no more questions, maybe it's time to wrap up. Yeah, good. Well then, I'm going to thank you a lot. Дуже дякуємо. And obviously to wish you all the best for all of these very constructive and extremely important projects for the perspectives of Ukraine and for the perspectives of Ukraine's recovery. And I'm also going to thank all of our participants for attending this webinar, and obviously to wish you a happy, beautiful, and peaceful year's end. And the French-Ukrainian Chamber of Commerce and Industry will meet you again in 2024 with, well, obviously, new webinars, new podcasts, new newsletters. So stay in touch and have happy holidays. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. And should you have any questions, both Damage in UA and VRP have all the contacts. Just send us a message. We'll be very happy to answer. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.